Okay, we're live. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 160. And today we're just really sad because the world is ending. Everything. We have hurricanes in Texas. We have hurricanes in Florida. And the one of the largest data brokers of that peddles our credit report has been hacked, and people lied about it. Is that about it? Can we go now, Tom? Are we over?
Yeah, no, I think that's it. I think we can end the episode. We're done a little bit early. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we'll see you next time.
So if you haven't heard, and even when your parents mention this to you, and you have to explain to them, you know that everyone's heard. So if you haven't heard, Equifax, one of the three big data brokers that hold your credit, was hacked. They lost 143 million records. And people say, well, that's not all of them. I beg to differ, because if you take 330 million, you subtract all the under 18 and over 65 people, that's about 100 million. You take all the people who don't have credit out, I don't know how many that is, you're basically left with 75 to 80% of the population who's had their credit breached.
And this isn't like, oh no, they lost my email address, I'm going to get spammed. This is full data sets lost. This is social security numbers, addresses, credit report, literally everything in your financial life is now, out to whoever wants to buy it, whoever's selling it, whoever grabbed it.
And again, let's reiterate what that means. Again, social security number, but Equifax has literally, and I said this pre-show, the answer to your security questions. What was your first car? Well, they helped you buy your first car. They know every alias you've ever gone under. They know every address you've ever lived at.
They probably know your mother's maiden name. Like when we talk about,
also have your mother's data as well. I mean, they have everyone's data.
When we talk about data warehousing and companies that store your data and make money by having your data, a credit bureau is really the epitome of that idea.
Well, the question that I have for you is that, and we'll get to this a little later, is that these are companies, it is digital. How do we stop them from being hacked? But before we go there, it was actually kind of funny. Before this happened, Experian was running ads on the TV saying, we'll give you one free dark web scan. And I sit there and I'm going, what's a dark web scan? Well, how are they checking the dark web? I didn't know the dark web had limits that they can check. And it was just kind of funny, like, the dark web, we're going to check for your information. I don't know how they're going to do that. And then the next day, all your information is now on the dark web.
Yeah. So as far as checking for things on the dark web, if they're looking for like social security numbers or whatever, I guess they could sign up with a bunch of fake accounts for like forums where people sell this kind of stuff, maybe go to some dark web markets, but they're not going to have, a bunch of social security numbers in their, almost eBay-like interface, right? They're going to say, hey, pack of 10,000 social security numbers, pack of, 50 identities, whatever. So I don't know a good technical way they could pull this off unless they're literally just looking through dark web forums and saying, there's no social security numbers here, I guess you're good.
So, I mean, they're liking this to the OPM hack that released a whole bunch of military people's information and public servants, which was bad. I mean, that was bad too, but that was the federal government, and everyone decried, oh, it's the federal government, this and that. We should privatize the data storage. Well, here you go. Here's a private company who holds this information hostage. It has been leaked to everyone who wants it. So the whole idea of public versus private, it doesn't matter, because if you're not secure in that stuff, you're going to have a problem. Now, the question is, what are you going to do about it? And the problem was that they didn't tell anybody. So we're finding out that this happened 6 weeks ago. I don't know. What were they, Tom, what are they trying to accomplish in the last 6 weeks? Are they trying to get the data back?
No, I don't think that's a real big possibility, because I'm sure there's a dollar amount where they could say we will give you X billion dollars to get this data back and make sure you delete it, but they're not going to do that, right? They're still a for-profit entity. There's no realistic way they could prevent uh, this data from being sold off or given away. Um, I imagine a lot of the time that they've taken has been trying to formulate a story around this, press release, and even more technical details of, okay, we know a bunch of stuff was stolen, but exactly how much was stolen, right? Going through the records of, okay, we know this was accessed here, these files were touched, these files contained this information for this subset of people, and then do that times 100 million plus. It's a pretty big job. I'm sure it would take an IT department a fairly long time, unless you've got really, really good logging, which, let's be realistic. Most companies don't have really good logging. If a lot, I'm not going to say a lot of the time, but companies do find out about data breaches from the FBI knocking on the door and saying, hey, someone's been selling your users' data. You should probably fix that. So I'm sure that they've been running around trying to get all the details they can, trying to figure out exactly how they're going to respond to this and how they're going to fix it. And frankly, with a breach of this magnitude, I don't know if there's any way. I honestly don't know if there's any way Experian lives through this.
Well, look, I mean, anything to decentralize the credit reporting agencies, I'm all in favor. So I'm not spilling a beer for this, but obviously you don't want companies hacked.
And we should probably mention, because we do have a pretty international audience. This credit bureau is for Americans. It's Americans' data that was lost. So if you're in America, if you've got credit in America, then yes, you are probably part of this breach. If not, if you spend all your time elsewhere in the world, you probably don't have to worry about this. And it's going to make a really good story for whatever credit agency that your country chooses to support through whatever means they have.
So again, international people, to make up your score, they have 3 different companies: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So Equifax was the one that was, and there's a 4th one that no one knows about, but these are the big 3 that gives you the credit score that allows you to borrow money. And they have a lot of data on you, because if you're trying to get a mortgage, and if you've tried to get a mortgage in the past, you know how difficult it is, what information you have to give. It is really invasive. 3 months of every single bank account that your name is on. And if you lie about it, they find out, and it takes longer and longer and longer. So you have to give them everything that you possibly have, every name change, every former employer. So they're getting this, and they're formulating how good of a person you are to lend. And after the crash in 2008, they got really strict about the different rules. And I know this because I've been through, since then, three house purchases and house selling. It's really invasive, and now somebody else has it. Again, it's okay. They have it. What are they going to do with it? And that's the next step. That's a really big problem, because the first thing they can do is they can make identity theft problems for you. They have all the information. It's not that you're going to get an uptick in spam. It's that you're going to get a whole bunch of credit card offers, and you're going to have to hope that nobody has that data.
So I guess the silver lining in this, really, let's be real. This is a breach of epic proportions. Target, Home Depot, they have nothing on this, right? That was minor at best compared to this. But the silver lining is that because this is so widespread, because we're talking about a subset of the a large subset of the credit owning populace in America. There's going to be a lot of identity theft, right? This is going to go from an occasional issue to a very, very common issue very quickly. The benefit of that being, it's now going to be in people's minds, right? We might see tools to deal with this sort of thing. We might see better checks. We might see decentralization of credit agencies. We might see, TransUnion and Experian bumping up their security divisions and their infosec. There's no guarantees right now, but at the very least, we have the world talking about this, which is good. These sorts of giant data warehouses are treasure troves. If you can break in, right, this is the Fort Knox of data. If you can break in, you're walking away with a lot of valuable stuff. So we need to start talking about how much we want to centralize this and how much faith we put in a central authority that does this kind of work and this type of data handling. Frankly, I think places that store this amount of data on people and this type of data, it's probably not a good thing to keep it all under one roof.
And the problem is that, as we saw, they did a really terrible job explaining it. I mean, something like this, where you're beholden to them, especially if you want credit. Like, you can't just go to Bank of America and say, when you figure out my credit score, don't use Equifax. I give them nothing. No, they use all three to come up with some composite score. And the problem is 6 weeks ago, they didn't say, oh, we're hacked, we're still looking into it. They lied. I don't want to say lied. They lied about it for 6 weeks, or they failed to disclose this for 6 weeks. And in those 6 weeks, we don't know how bad it actually is. And I don't think we'll ever know how bad it actually is until something happens. And I'm hoping the lawmakers are trying to strengthen things and saying, you know what, maybe we should strengthen how much power, like you said, these data broker has. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening. I'm just hoping that the credit card companies, the people giving you money, are starting to realize we got to be careful with this data and we should check twice.
I think that's the most likely scenario. Is you're going to get the other credit agencies out there and other data brokers saying, oh, wow, if we have a breach, this could kill us. Literally, it could kill the company. Right now, there are several states, talking about huge, giant lawsuits, like company-ending lawsuits against this company for essentially deceiving consumers, for betraying consumer trust, and for really causing a giant mess. Where we've got people talking about class action lawsuits, of course, but we've got now chatbots being made by people that will automatically fill out forms for you to take down to the small claims court so you can sue them yourself. And that's actually getting a decent amount of traction. We'll have to see what happens with this, but if it does end the company, while it's unfortunate for everyone who's going to lose their jobs because it's a giant company, it's going to shed some light on this issue of, if you hold valuable data, you have to protect it with your life, right? Speaking as a company, right? The company has to protect the data, or the company will get shut down, right? It will get sued out of existence.
Or should at least disclose how it's protecting the data. So if there is a breach, because the bigger problem is, not only did they lose the stuff, the way they handled it was just awful. I mean, it's probably as bad as it could be, because first you hear there was a breach. Okay, that's bad enough. Then you hear that it was 6 weeks ago. That's also bad. And then you hear the executives decided to sell stock right before the breach or right after the breach and didn't tell anybody, which also looks shady. And then you get into, they're going to test they're asking you for more information, and we don't know if it's real or legit, trying to get your social security number to see if you're part of it. And it was just step by step by step by step, just being bad. The website they gave you was non-credible at best.
It was shady. So they gave you a weird URL to go to, and they said, hey, go to this weird URL. Don't worry, it's HTTPS. It's also running stock WordPress under the hood. And it asks for like 6 digits of your social security number and a bunch of other personal information that says, oh, you may have been affected. We'll let you know. And I guess they're supposed to email us at some point in time. Also, the terms of service of that website could be misread to say that you are giving up your ability to class action sue Equifax for the breach. technically you're giving up you're forcing arbitration on yourself for that specific site and that specific company, but it still looked really bad. So I believe it was the New York Attorney General that got on this and said, hey, you can't enforce this. That's illegal. And so they eventually removed that from their terms of service. But it's just one thing after another with this company. And none of it has been handled gracefully or properly.
The Who Is records, we're linking the Ars Technica article. The Who Is records was not shown, said that Equifax did not own the domain, some shell company. If you went through the WordPress, the stock WordPress, they hard coded the username to be Edelman. I mean, just little things like this. They were telling you day in and day out. Their TLS certificate doesn't do proper revocation checks, which Tom explained a lot in the previous episode. Nothing is registered to them. It was just, they hired an intern. Hey, intern, your job is to make this look slightly better. And the intern said, well, let's make a website. I'll go to WordPress, put under his name and his everything. And it was just, everything we taught you to do just failed miserably.
If you want a master's class on how not to handle a data breach disclosure, check out Equifax and what they've done. This is literally, it's exactly what not to do. The only thing they got right is, yeah, their site was HTTPS, kinda.
Did they use Let's Encrypt? Was that what we were saying? They did not use Let's Encrypt, I don't think.
Okay. I mean, either way, like if all you need is domain validation, that's fine. But let's be honest, if there's a breach of this magnitude and you're trying to win back not necessarily your customers, because the people who got breached are not the customers. They're just the data objects that are being pawned off to customers like banks. But if you want to regain trust, have an extended validation cert to make it like breach2017.equifax.com or something like that, right? Make it look official. Hire a designer. Put your entire staff into this to say, hey, look, we messed up. We really did. We have lost your trust, but please, if you want more information, fill out this form. Even then, like giving even more of your personal information to these people, I did not fill out the form. I will not fill out the form. They already, have leaked that information on me once. I'm not going to give them another chance to do it. So I don't know. Well,
that's what I said. I mean, we spoke about this in the WhatsApp group, which again, we've been talking about this all week. You're free to join, just message us. We were saying, like you said, they made this bogus website, Equifax Security 2017. Why not just make a subdomain? That's what the initial thought that I said. Your website wasn't hacked. Make a subdomain. Okay, you're a data broker. You should have extended validation certificates. You should have your domain registered to you. You should have all these things. You really shouldn't need to ask your social security number. There should be other ways to check for this. And what I guess they're trying to do is getting one unique thing instead of please choose your name from the list.
Yeah, this is kind of nuts. So if I were handling this breach, right, I would say, hey, let's partner with Experian or TransUnion, and let's go ahead and partner up with them and have them notify people of the breach, right? Have someone independent take a look at the data that was lost and go forward from there. At the very least, take the breach notification ball out of our court, so maybe people would trust it a little bit more. Try to stave off the company-ending lawsuits just a bit longer, which I don't think is going to happen. I think they will get sued out of existence, but we'll have to see. There's also the question of, if the company goes under, they have to liquidate their assets and sell off their data. Where does that data go?
Well, I think that's the next problem. And you hit that right on the head. When companies go out of business, what do they sell with the data? Because somebody picks that up. Always, that's probably one of the hot button items that people pick up, and nobody knows that it got sold. All assets were sold to X company. Nobody can describe what assets are.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a normal business. Let's say you make pizzas, right? And you go bankrupt. You sell off the tables, the chairs, the cups, the ice cream maker, the pizza ovens. You sell it all off. Um, Equifax doesn't have pizza ovens. They've got data. They've got credit history on people, and that's the kind of stuff that'll get liquidated when they go under. Now, I know we're making a bunch of bold predictions on this show, and we will probably be proven wrong, but I really think this is going to happen.
Look, Google, what is it called? Not Did you know our lost everything when their cert got leaked. It's
Yeah.
what you did is you violate the public trust of everybody, and now the other two companies need to have the trust because if not, the whole credit system is going to go under. So what they're probably going to do is they're going to stand behind the public and say, "Hey, Equifax, you need to either radically change, pivot to something else, or just leave." They have enough data that they can pivot to anything they want and target you for the next 20 years. So they can go somewhere else. They just need to do it.
Yeah, that's if they can avoid extinction level lawsuits,
So,
which is going to be really challenging because states themselves are now bringing these up.
so Ars Technica has a few steps that you can follow. So assume that you've been breached. Don't assume you haven't because, like we said, it's too many. There's
Chances
too
are
many
you have.
Okay. I don't agree with this. Enroll in whatever credit monitoring service they have. Again, if you did it before they got rid of the social security number of the superintendent, be careful where you put your social security number in. So they're telling you here, we're going to give you a free credit report for a year, provide us with this information, and our monitoring department is going to do it. Well, wait a second. You just couldn't handle everyone else's data. Now you're trying again to handle my data. I don't believe you.
I do not like credit monitoring. I've never received credit monitoring that's ever done anything for me. And I know we like to keep things fairly generic unless it pertains to a specific breach, but I do have to call out LifeLock. So way back in the day, some breach happened and I got LifeLock for a year. In that year, I moved banks. I bought a car. I opened a lease on a new apartment after running through a bunch of apartments. And like these were all things that hit my credit, right? Oh, and I took out some student loans, some private student loans from the credit union I moved to. I never got a phone call, an email, a text message, nothing from LifeLock. They had no idea. When they called me at the end of the year and said, hey, they gave me their sales pitch. I said, hey, for X number of dollars, you can re-up for a year. Do you want to? I said, no, absolutely not. Here are all the things I've done with my credit, and I never got notified once. I will say that LifeLock was honestly the most useless thing I have ever been awarded from one of these breaches, and I would not put any money into them whatsoever.
And they're the one who advertises. I wouldn't put money into any of them. And I did tell you, if you're going to sign up, I would wait till the very last day that they allow you to sign up. And I keep on saying this because if everyone signs up now, the hackers are just going to wait that year out. And then on a year and 1 day, they're going to go after all those people who signed early. So by signing late, the hackers know that they have to wait a year. And now you go in. Now you're provided for an extra 6 months past what the hackers thought it was. Again, your mileage may vary. They may go after now and see what they can hit. They're going after the low-hanging fruit. But again, you're listening to the show, so you know about how to keep things somewhat secure.
Yeah, there's also now, this is kind of painful. You can pay a fee to the 3 credit agencies to freeze your credit, and they'll give you a long PIN. Now, who knows how they're storing the long PIN, right? I don't know. I cannot vouch for that. I can't vouch for the security or sanctity of it, but I totally muted myself. One of the common strategies that I've seen is if you if you freeze your credit, you can't do anything with your credit, right? If you're in the middle of trying to get a mortgage or trying to buy a car, don't do this. It'll mess you up. It'll make the whole process take far longer. But you can freeze it and then unfreeze it when you need it. It is a process. It does cost money to unfreeze it and refreeze it. And I realize, Equifax are the last people you want to be giving money to. but it is an option. It's actually been one of the common, I guess, protection mechanisms around identity theft so far.
But I mean, I've bought my house, I have my cars. I don't think I'm getting credit anytime soon. So for me, it's not a bad idea to do it and then to spend the $10 on my wife's account. But I know that something is going to happen. I'm going to get qualified for another free credit card. I'm going to say, okay, let me check. And I'm going to forget that. And then we have to go through the whole process. I wish there was a way just to call them and say, hey, do me a favor. I'm done with my credit. Just lock it. And I'll call you when I have a problem. Instead, they make you jump through all these hoops.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why they do that, right? Because it's kind of like locking an account, really. If I could just, email Google and say, hey, I'm done with this email address. Could you just lock it, like from someone else's account? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. And then you go to log into Hangouts to launch this show, and all of a sudden your Google account's locked, and now you've got to go through a bunch of steps to unlock it. So I get why it's kind of a lot of hoops to freeze your credit. And then, of course, it's a lot of hoops to unfreeze your credit. The whole process is kind of annoying, and I think it should be better. Hopefully, with this breach, we'll start thinking about that, start thinking about modernizing the system, because it is woefully in need of some updating.
Again, check your credit report. Every year you get one free credit report check from all three of them. I like to do mine right now in the fall when I go back to work and everything else. But you're entitled to that. So absolutely take advantage of that and see if there's anything on your credit report that will throw up a red flag that it's broken or damaged or somebody's living in there or anything else.
Yeah. So one of the things, let me see here. I'm trying to look up. Yeah, okay. This is from consumer.ftc.gov. If you want to get your free credit report, you can visit annualcreditreport.com. It's free. You get one a year. It's brought to you by TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. So you've got the big three in there. That's annualcreditreport.com. Don't use any of the other free sites that make you sign up for a bunch of trials and nasty stuff, especially if you've seen them on a commercial. Don't use those people. I will not give them the airtime.
And I don't think you get your FICO score, but both my Amex card and my Capital One card both give me some super inflated FICO score, but they do come out. So that's another thing. Check with your credit card. You may want to wait a little bit, but call your credit card company and see what they're doing to protect you. They may say, we would like to give you a whole new number, which if you want, absolutely take that. Anything that will change the data that they have without them knowing is exactly what you want.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So here in the States, we use Social Security numbers as a form of identification and form of verification, which we absolutely shouldn't. Even when Social Security numbers became a thing, it was printed on the card. It might still be printed on the card. This is not to be used for identification. Even in the law, it says, hey, don't ever use this for identification. It's really not supposed to be used that way because they're not unique at all. Based on time and place of birth, you can really narrow down the search space pretty far. So they're predictable. They've got a known schema. They are not cryptographically random in the least at all. It's not even a thing they try to be. But we still continue to use them like the super secret ID number, even though, frankly, they should just be public. That's what they were meant to be, is super public numbers. But this is the world we live in today. So we'll have to see if we can maybe we'll get modernized Social Security out of this. I doubt it personally, but I can dream.
Next thing, step 4, file your taxes early. I guess that's to make sure that the correct one is in and not the spam one. Last thing you need is your credit breach and the IRS going after you for forgetting to do something up to code. So it says file your taxes early. I guess that's a good idea. Get it done. Get them done early. So if anybody tries to go behind you, cash a bogus check behind you, they can't do it.
Yeah, and the IRS has been this is something that happens every year. They keep on fighting it. People filing bogus claims and trying to get money from the government that's not theirs. So yeah, we'll have to see, and we will definitely keep you up to date with any and all news that happens on this front. If you want up to the second news, join the WhatsApp group. Send us a message, hit us up on Twitter or email or YouTube comments, or go to a really tall hill and just scream, and we will get you at it.
So absolutely. And just keep on being vigilant. Now you're starting to see people care. And when people care, they get a little louder. I don't know what's going to happen when they have to put their money where their mouth is. But again, a lot of people knew about this. A lot of people are coming to me saying, what should I do? So that's a good thing. With that, we're over our time. So we're going to end, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
See you, everyone.